Colombia is the third largest coffee-producing country and the largest producer of mild coffee in the world. Yes, gentlemen, to occupy that place all our coffee growers have made great efforts in the processes, and today, in front of the events of the field, you are going to know different processes that help Colombia to be one of the largest producers of mild coffee in the world. With the engineer Jorge Estrada. Engineer, what a pleasure to see you again. How nice, Gloria, to see us again. If we are on this show right now, because we want to show you something very new. Yes, something new that you were telling us about was the electronic eye. What is the electronic eye for coffee cultivation? In reality, it is a total concept within the process of coffee in the wet mill, where there is a machine incorporated, which is an electronic eye. What is an electronic eye? It is to select the coffee by color, which is Gloria, is that people no longer have the culture of only ripe coffee, which had our grandparents, who only collected ripe coffee, the collection by volumes and also by culture, and as it is paid per kilo, people are eager to earn more money, enters a lot to a central benefits like this, which is a point of purchase of associates and non-associates. In this area of Western Caldas, which is the municipality of Encerma, the coffee heart of the country. In order to produce a special coffee, we needed to separate the green coffee. We needed a machine that could do the capacity, for the volumes that are 15 to 20,000 kilos / job, then an electronic eye does exactly what the picker does, it looks at the grain and separates the ripe from the green. Daniel, thank you for being with us. Every day you are implementing new equipment, new technologies. What else are we going to see in this program? Of course, Gloria, additionally people in Colombia are also learning to drink coffee, and people are not satisfied with the coffee in coffee shops, but want to drink quality coffee, specialty coffees. Within this, the cooperative is beginning to promote the issue of natural, the process of natural coffee. For this we have two teams that has developed JM Estrada, which is the natural coffee thresher, and a fermentation tank, where what is being sought is this process of fermentation, with additional processes such as yeast that later we will see. So we are going to see two very special lines, one that is for the topic of specialty coffee, engineer, which is also growing in Colombia, and this other topic that also says a coffee sorter, because worldwide coffee consumption has increased a lot. We invite you to this tour. Let's go. Here we have the heart of the mill, at this moment, which is the classification of the cherry coffee. Why the heart? Because this machine is the one that makes the difference between having a central, that gives quality coffee, and one that simply produces an ordinary coffee of good quality, but nothing special. We have to differentiate what is a special coffee from a commercial coffee. In this plant we have a system that receives the coffee. We take the coffee up through the bucket elevator system, which does not consume water. We do a classification of flotsam and stones, of foreign objects that damage the machines, and then we come to a system where we feed this machine that is called a coffee sorter by color, which does exactly what a coffee grower does. Once the coffee is classified, there is only green and ripe coffee. There are no foreign elements that damage the machines. There is no floating coffee, which is a poor quality coffee. We separate it from the water. All the water in the system recirculates and then comes through this screw to feed the multiscan machine, which is the machine that can process up to 15,000 kilos / job of coffee, 0.000 kilos / job of cherry coffee, separating the green from the mature. The plus of this machine is that it allows to make both washed coffee, as natural coffees, among the other existing processes in Colombia only allowed to separate green in a mechanical way, by means of the technology of washed coffee, but it did not allow to be natural. This machine allows us to produce both traditional Colombian coffees of high quality, as well as natural coffees that must also be made only from ripe coffee. This machine does not destroy the composition of the fruit, but the fruit passes intact. It simply takes pictures. As you can see, it is like a flash, and it takes many pictures. It processes it in this computer and makes the decision. The green is rejected. The ripe is sent to the system either for pulping, sorting and fermenting. Because here there is no fulminating, we return to the fermentation system but in dry fermentation, where you are not going to contaminate the water and then a very efficient washing, or you go to a natural process, where you get the cherries, all ripe, you can go to a drying system immediately or special fermentations, we can do anaerobic fermentation to achieve points, which are being achieved in the world very high. Up to 95 points of cupping, special coffees. This technology also exists for olives, for cherries, blueberries, for many fruits in the world. Does this technology consume a lot of water? It is very good question, Gloria, because the water consumption here the minimum, because, first the whole project is done dry, there is only a closed system, closed cycle to classify the cherry, very little water and then we have a fermentation. When you have a fermented coffee, we are talking about pulped coffee, that fermentation is easier to remove the mucilage, because it is of mucilage is already decomposed. That mucilage needs less water, than a demucilaginadora that consume less water. And here in this mill we have a technology called centriflux, consuming minimal water. Also this plant has a great thing, it has some hoppers to receive the pulp. When we pulp we do it completely dry, when there is natural obviously we pulp, there is no pulp, the coffee is dried, under the pulp, we transport it to the hoppers and those hoppers then allows us to load it by dump truck underneath. Also environmentally, it saves a lot of manpower and there is no leachate, if you can see those hoppers completely clean. Once the fruit is sorted by color, what is the process? In reality we have a ripe cherry of excellent quality, we can take two processes, one is to dry it as is or there are some new processes of fermentations, which add special flavors to the coffee, which are called fermentation editors, which we are going to see. How to ferment a good coffee, so that every day you have that quality that follows the market. We are back.
Frente al campo va a empezar.
We return and thank you for continuing in tune with our program, in front of the events of the field. Today we are in Enserma, Caldas. What you can see in the background, is a coffee processing plant, where many processes are done to get a good cup of coffee, and here we have equipment that can be very useful to our small coffee growers, to get that good cup of coffee as the farmer who is dedicated to a special coffee. What are the features of this equipment? Of course, Gloria, it is very important to emphasize that after all the process that we have been seeing, when the selected ripe coffee is removed, a process called fermentation happens. The fermentation of this natural coffee is a process that needs some specific conditions, and for that JM Estrada has developed this equipment. The first thing is a tank that is stainless steel. Keep in mind that the coffee has leachate or decomposition of fermentation, which is oxidizing equipment, then very important to note that all this fermentation tank is stainless steel. The second thing is that when you are doing a fermentation process, you have to take into account the movement of the internal mass of the coffee, which JM developed a very easy way for anyone to operate. For example, this equipment has a capacity of 400 liters, so it can easily move a mass of 400 liters. Which makes it easy for anyone to operate. And the third thing is that this equipment has specific measurements, which Cesar will explain to us, which is very important to have within the fermentation process. What a pleasure to have you with us, Cesar. Thank you, Gloria, how nice of you to invite me again, to see you again, as always. JM's hand. Today we came to show you what fermentation in a bioreactor is, obeying the need that producers have today to generate cups, with greater value, more complex cups, but also at the same time consistent. We saw the need through the fact that people began to do trials, we saw the need through the fact that people began to make tests. Around drums, barrels, a series of materials, that suddenly threw things. Let's say very exotic, very rich, but also at the moment of multiplying them or to take a second bump, we found that they disappeared, is where also enters the topic, of the first thing to develop a very good cup, to develop what the market wants: complexity, differentiated notes, exotic notes, but also beyond that, it is also to be consistent. That is why it is so important is the instrumentalization, the fact of being spherical, to defeat what Daniel was telling us, to be a completely hygienic material that is not going to transfer additional flavors. I am going to have a very good pot, let's call it that. If we are going to cook, I'm going to have a very good pot. I'm going to have the potential that if I add a good raw material and develop a good formula, I'm going to have exotic coffees. Those exotic notes that I'm developing today, you're going to find them in a month, in 2 months, in 6 months, in a year, over time, and that's called a stable commercial relationship. Caesar, let's keep in mind something, that people love fermenting, but for that reason people also say, it is not that fermentation is much better done in barrels, in wood. That person who has always liked to ferment in wood, what difference does it make here? Of course, we return to the subject of fermentation, that the best paid food, the most expensive food, so to speak, and the idiosyncrasy of Colombian coffee comes from fermentation. By having a completely clean material, I will have the guarantee that I will obtain from here many types of coffees, many types of formulas. When you have another material, those materials are absorbent, and I will have the versatility that every time I wash it, I can create a different formula. I can have a farm, no matter how small it is, I can have 10 different variables every time I go to do a different test, as long as I control them and repeat them. Once we have the coffee inside and we have applied any of the other microorganisms to complement fermentation, whether it is fungus, the yeast of my preference, the notes that I have developed, we have it closed, regularly. This is the, let's say, the working position of the equipment, because we need that check that is above that exhaust valve to be working. Well, and so I am going to turn the equipment, I close it so that there is no loss of liquid. The interesting thing about this equipment, and that we have looked for it to turn, first of all, it is an easier way, to save us that labor, that amount of labor that is consumed by turning the drums, because regularly the drums or where I am doing my fermentation, I have to rotate them, to be moving that liquid, and that it is constantly bathing that mass of coffee. I forgot to tell you, at the moment of closing this valve, we are going to inject CO2, that's how we are going to inject CO2, that's what we are going to do. I am going to inject CO2, this is going to complement the system of having a purely anaerobic fermentation. Here I am already afraid of how much pressure I am going to work with. Also, the novelty of this equipment is that we have a system where we can monitor the samples, the beans, to see how the fermentation is going, without altering what is happening here inside. No other equipment on the market has that. The same here. If I am going to check the leachates as they come, we can instrument it, is where the control comes from, to be able to know what is happening inside, regarding the temperature of the mass, temperature of the leachates, to see how the pH behaves, and what is the microbial activity of it, and if I am going to move it, if I am going to turn it, if I want to. I can have a barometer here to be monitoring the internal pressure, to be looking at what is happening in terms of that pressure, because some gases are going to be generated here, the behavior of the gases as the fermentation evolves. I tell you, we have a completely versatile equipment. We do not need electric power. The operator will find it easier to make this movement. He can have from 1 to 10, up to the amount of barrels that are needed, of a completely clean material, and very easy to handle when it is time to empty the barrels to continue the process. We are back, and thank you for continuing in tune with our program in front of the events of the field, with Juan Carlos Ramirez. Let's talk a little history of this cooperative. because Juan Carlos, you have been very pioneering in different processes in the coffee, here in Caldas. Right, since 2007, when the integrated processing plant of the Coffee Growers Cooperative of Ensurma was installed, we have been developing new lines of coffee marketing. We have been buying cherry coffee for about 15 years, with very satisfactory results. The producers have been very happy with this service, as the technology is advancing. Since last year significant investments were made by the administration, the council. The administration of the cooperative of coffee growers, and with strategic allies, we have been making incursions since last year with the production of natural coffees on a medium scale. Now with this new assembly that is in operation and with the electronic machine, we want to increase a little more the volume of coffee production and develop new profiles such as double fermentation, washed coffees with controlled fermentation. We are betting on innovation and to generate added value. When you bet on an innovation, obviously you have different strategic allies that help you to implement all the innovation programs. The truth is that for this new remodeling of the cherry coffee line, we opted again for JM for the trajectory we had and for the service they have given us. They are very good quality equipment. Clearly we had a module that lasted 15 years and we are changing it for new technology, not because the equipment has deteriorated. The experience has been very satisfactory with JM. We are in the cooperative of Ensurma with the final process of coffee. After receiving the cherry coffee, classified, separate the impurities, then we separate the green coffee, this natural ripe coffee. We had two options, either ferment them with the implementer that we saw and dry it, or go directly to drying, and the state that is here the coffee is dry natural coffee. We pass the process of threshing. What is the threshing? To remove the skin from this coffee, and simply this is a ripe cherry, which was dried and is ready to proceed to remove the skin. This equipment makes the threshing process. It threshes 300 kilos of this natural per hour and is capable of processing 900 kilos, but the machine is specialized for natural coffee. Why specialized for natural coffee? Because threshing natural is very difficult, since the natural ones have a lot of honey and when they are checked they are like half plastic and this produces a lot of heat. It has a turbo blower cross-injection system, which injects air through the center. It has a 25 horsepower engine and the cyclone of a 7.5 horsepower engine that takes all the husk. It does not remove it and does not take it to a cyclone on the outside of the mill so that it stays clean. Here we are with Cesar, who is an expert in specialty coffees, to tell us about the attributes of a natural coffee and the attributes of a good threshing. Of course, Jorge, what we are looking for when we develop a natural coffee, we remember that they are called natural, because it was the state of the coffee as it was processed before the pulping machines existed. But what has happened today, we have returned to the origins, but a little more sophisticated. We are fermenting coffees, we are processing coffees, as the ancients did. That's why we see equipment like the bioreactor, and the need for this equipment was born. A variable that was not controllable for those of us who produce micro lots was the threshing, because we didn't have threshing machines for micro lots, for nano lots, that would give us the guarantee first of all of being able to have the power to break this crust that natural coffee has. Secondly, that would be of a volume equivalent to a micro lot. So if we empty a sack of natural coffee, of coffee and cassava, of natural coffee, of coffee and cacota, well man, the result is my coffee and that. It is not say a very big system, that we do not really know where it dries was then an equipment so small powerful, but versatile where we can have the meshes and a set of meshes according to the needs of our client, that if he wants we can prepare them an EP, we can prepare a supreme one for him. We can have the same preparations that we have with the coffees, soft washed, that we will not damage the coffee by heating. Remember that this is by friction, in these micro batches are very Delicate, I have to preserve the embryo. If I let the almond to heat up I will end up killing the embryo, that later will translate into having rests and have cup problems. We are guaranteeing a very good threshing process, not incurring delays, which was what used to happen with conventional threshing machines, that also went against the quality of the coffee, because it would get hot, because it would break from going through machines, through monitors, such large equipment, such large assemblies where the system itself needs 10 to 15 bags to purge, but here we don't need to purge. Here we pour, and what we pour out here, I know that it is mine, that it belongs to that lot, with the versatility also to have the complete set of meshes, to be able to make the preparation that my client wants, because it is not only to have the natural, but I have clients in Europe, then I have to reuse mesh 15, that I have a client in the United States to play from mesh 14, from here we can already talk about also having supreme natural, because we have mesh 16, 17, 18. So, thank you very much for paying attention to this call of us gummies in the world of coffee, to solve us and to be able to be competitive and continue making a difference. Competitiveness, being versatile, was something that you were able to observe in this program, in this tour of this cooperative, in the company of these professionals. Juan Carlos, thank you for being with us on this journey. Thank you very much for coming to visit us. We invite all the associates of our cooperative to sell us coffee in the facilities, coffee in Cherry, and we invite all the producers of the country who want to visit us. Here we are with open doors to receive you. Engineer Jorge, versatility, as Cesar was saying, competitiveness is what you are betting on now with this new equipment that we saw here, in this plant. Gloria, here we are trying to transfer the latest technology, which exists in the market, to produce specialty coffees, both natural and washed coffees. Caesar says that you with your new generation, every day working that special theme that we could observe, one more alternative to ferment, that coffee, and with your new generation, Caesar. Of course Gloria, the idea is that we keep believing, keep working, the market is full of possibilities, which are those that provide us with the necessary technology to respond to our customers. Daniel, thank you very much for showing all our viewers, that every day you are at the forefront with these coffee growers. Of course Gloria, we thank you for coming to join us, for allowing us to show this new technology that we are bringing from JM Estrada, to show these processes, in renovation that bring new opportunities, to have a really quality coffee. And as Daniel says, new opportunities, every day we are ready to show them to you, and we are reaching the end of our program, and as we always say, to continue bringing the countryside to the city and the city to the countryside.